Hey folks, I've had several requests to do an update on the garden pond, and before it gets too cold and before I take it down, I wanted to go ahead and do an update about that and talk about the bog filter that's on there and how well it's worked. And while I'm at it, I want to do an update on the Steampunk Tank, which kind of uses a similar technology. I've been chasing that dream, which is a tank that doesn't require water changes, but that might not be possible. I'm going to tell you all about that right after this. Hey YouTube, this is pecktec, and earlier this year I finally cashed in on an idea that I had a while back. I was doing a pond video over at the aquarium with Leah, and she was showing me the bog filter that they have there over their pond. And I was real fascinated with that and the way that works, and I wanted to incorporate sort of a miniature one into my tiny little garden pond. I saw this as an opportunity to try out some plants I'd never tried before, and especially the carnivorous plants, the pitcher plants that I picked out. I think are really beautiful. I became really fascinated with those things, and I wanted to try them out. And I really didn't know what any of the plants that I bought would end up doing. I mean, I had some idea on some of them, but I wasn't really sure exactly how that was going to work out. But I knew the science behind the whole thing was pretty sound. Basically, you've got plants that have the full advantage of having a constant water source, but are also above the air where they can get all the carbon that they need, and of course lots of sunlight and things like that too. So the water filters through all these plants and then back into the pond. In the past, my pond would have some pretty bad algae issues. I mean, it doesn't have a lot of shade, it's in direct sun, and until the lilies really grow to cover up everything, and the mosaic plants that I like to put in there really covered everything, I would end up with this algae everywhere. I didn't notice an immediate change with the pond, but it did come together pretty well, and I've really enjoyed having it. It's really a beautiful way to filter your pond. So the small shallow space at the top really made a great place for that creeping Jenny to really work its way down and then eventually on over the waterfall and into the other pond itself. I was really surprised at the amount that that plant spread. Of course, none of the plants that I used I'd ever had before, and it was just kind of interesting to see what happens. Sometimes you get lucky with plants, a lot of times I don't, but but sometimes without a lot of research you can throw a plant in and kind of get it to do what you thought it might do. I'm lucky enough to have a store that has a whole section of plants that are especially for those type of environments, so making the selection was pretty easy. After that, I was just kind of looking at some pictures online and kind of getting an idea for what I might like. It's starting to get cold, and actually I should have probably made this video a couple of weeks ago before it started to kind of chill out. I've already removed all the endlers. I raised endlers in the pond. That's what I do every year, is I throw some endlers in there and pull out a bunch at the end of the season. So I mostly raised endlers in there. I also have some cherry red shrimp in there. I've caught as many as I can, but inevitably I always kind of miss a couple. And I've even seen them overwinter before, and it gets really cold. I mean, the whole pond iced over, but there were still some shrimp in there when I went back the next season to kind of start to set it up again. So that was pretty fascinating. So it was pretty crazy. I had no idea the shrimp could endure that. I'm not recommending that you do that or try that. It just happened. And of course this year also I made the Steampunk Tank, which kind of takes a lot of the same principles of the bog filter and applies it to an aquarium. The Steampunk Tank is a project that I had started a long time ago. I mean, I had this sort of aquaponics thing in my head to do with it for a long time, and I think originally I was going to grow like basil or something like that in the top. Then I became aware of the Wabi-Kusa Balls, kind of from purely aquatic, and the whole kind of attitude towards that changed. I started thinking about these decorative, sort of like jungly little balls of dirt that I could put together. So I put together the initial concept for this thing. I kind of gave it a backstory. I actually made up like a 2 or 3 page story, sort of the fake history of this tank and stuff. And if you're interested in hearing about that or seeing that, just let me know in the comments down below. Alright, so I've got a video that tells all about how this came together, and it's pretty interesting to watch it all be put together. This is a sleeve that slides over the top of it. I've got a pump right here, it goes up into a tray. In the tray I've got 3 Wabi-Kusa balls filled with all kinds of different plants. The plants I have now are slightly different than the ones I started with. The temple that I put in there at first just got too big. I mean, it loved being in that Wabi-Kusa ball, and it actually grew out and it was just like constantly bent over. Now I've got this crypt that's in there, and it started off really, really small. It was from the original Wabi-Kusa ball that I did in the Wabi-Kusa experiments video last year, over a year ago. It's now gotten huge and really needs to be trimmed. And a lot of these kind of Wabi-Kusa scenarios, what you would do is you'd have a little cover on it to keep, as you acclimate it to immersed growth. The thing is with this thing is like this glass part actually looks really cool. I kind of like having that on all the time. So I never bothered to take it off, so I don't actually have to mist it. I actually made a custom mister just to kind of keep the thing moist and stuff, but I never have to use it. It stays really just pretty moist in there. This fern has done really, really well. And this crypt, of course, is starting to get too big, and the leaves are mushing up against the glass and that sort of thing. I probably had to deal with that. Of course, the last time I took this cover off was a couple of weeks ago, and everything just kind of pours out and it goes crazy. I could, in theory, I think at this point, if I misted the plants once in a while, I probably could take this cover off and just let the plants grow up the top. I'm not quite ready to do that, though. I might do that in the future, but right now I think I'll just leave it be. There are fish in here. There's just 4 little fish. They're really tiny and they're really beautiful. I got them from Miss Jinx to Rachel O'Leary. I knew I wanted to do this project, but what kind of pushed me over the edge was this contest they were having at the Big Fish Deal. I went there the year before, and they had all these theme tanks and stuff where people like were really being creative with their aquariums, really going out there. My big thing with any hobby is if I do the same thing over and over again, it starts to get boring. I mean, I love making beautiful aquascapes, and no aquascape's the same, and yada, 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 but I really wanted to make a tank that was different, kind of unusual, but not ugly. Something that would really stand out, something I could really be proud of, and I spent a lot of time putting this together, both in the concept and in application. So when I told Rachel about this, I kind of showed her some pictures, and I asked her what fish should I put in there, and she recommended the peacock gudgeons. Now I've kept those before and I really, really love them, but what's great about these guys is they're very, very curious. So I have potential, if I put a really shy fish, they could go back in here in the cave area of this tank and hide. And I did not want that. I wanted a fish that would always be out here kind of wondering what I'm up to, hoping that I'm about to feed them. And those guys really fit the bill. Plus they're tiny, so this is really only a 5-gallon aquarium inside. It's way over filtered with the Wabi-Kusa balls and stuff, but it is a small aquarium, and I wanted the best for these little fish. I think in my head what I was going to do is pull out those peacock gudgeons and maybe put them in another tank. I really would like to have a tank with like 15 or 20 of these things because I really like them a lot. And I'd like to try to breed them again. I tried to breed them once. It didn't work out too well, but I'd like to try that again. Now the reason I started down the road of like a more beautiful and attractive thematic aquaponics system is because I was chasing this thing that I've heard about a lot, which is a no water change aquarium. Basically, an aquarium with a lot more plants than fish that never really needs a water change. All you have to do is add water. I've been testing this really closely, and for the past several months, I have not done a water change. In fact, the only water change I've really done in this is when I brought it home from the Big Fish Deal, and past that, I've just been adding water and testing the parameters every week. I've gotten some comments before when I talk about doing water changes that say, why don't you just test for the nitrates, and if they look okay, then just add some water. And that's kind of an interesting factor. I mean, nitrates are definitely a pointer to tell you that it's probably time to get your water changed. There are other things too. Of course, you never want ammonia or nitrite or anything like that, but if those are zero and you have undetectable nitrates, maybe you don't need a water change. Now, of course, after doing some more research on this, I came across a few things that sort of tipped the scales on whether or not the no water change dream aquarium is possible. Now, as water evaporates out of the aquarium, it leaves behind all kinds of minerals and things like that. And one of the things in there are metals. So over time, the metals build up and build up and build up. They can affect the pH and the KH of your aquarium and really cause some problems for your fish, even kill your fish. Now, what it's got going for it is the plants take up those metals. They need those metals actually to survive. But can they take up enough of them? So I'm not sure if over a long period of time the plants could actually pull out enough metals to really make that work. And really, you probably should be removing some of the water too. The other thing that happens that you don't hear about a whole lot is that fish secrete hormones. These hormones tend to inhibit the growth of the other fish that are in the tank with them. Now, some this is a bigger effect than others. I don't know if peacock gudgeons are kind of notorious for this, but I know that live bearers are. If you have lots and lots of live bearers like guppies or platies in a tank and you don't do frequent water changes, they will inhibit the growth of the rest of the fish in the tank. And even when they get to maturity, they won't get as mature and as large and beautiful as they could. The other thing to consider is that our water system is absolutely polluted with all kinds of crazy stuff that doesn't get filtered out of our local water supply. So in this water column, in trace amounts, there's Prozac, Viagra, just about anything that a human can ingest. Trace amounts of that end up in your aquarium, and like I said, over a long period of time, could probably potentially cause a problem, making the water change really the safer bet. So did I accomplish the no water change aquarium? No. And I don't think anybody truly can. But small amount of fish, large amount of plants, I came really, really close. And I think I could even go a bit further without doing it, but instead, I'll probably just include it in my next weekly water change. That's right, I still haven't done a water change, even though I'm talking about why I should. This is a little bit off topic, but I've talked about how much I love podcasts before, and I don't tend to listen to fish-related podcasts, but I found one I'm really excited about. It's called Aquarium Myths and Secrets Revealed, and the host, the master aquarist, leads you down a whole bunch of really interesting topics. He's really concise. Some of the episodes are only like 7 or 8 minutes long. Others are longer and more detailed. He does a lot of tests, a lot of research, real good science to go with your aquarium knowledge. So it's not just the fluffy stuff, it's the real interesting stuff that you probably will be interested in. He does some saltwater stuff, some freshwater stuff, and stuff that comes from both worlds. I've never met him or talked to him or anything before, but I'm going to go ahead and give him a shout out because I absolutely love his program. There'll be a link down below if you want to check it out. Okay, so next week I want to talk a little bit more about the Into the Woods tank. It's doing a lot better. It was a nightmare for about a week or two, but things have started to calm down. It's actually starting to look really cool now. I'm excited to tell you about it. I'm going to let it grow out for about another week, and then we'll talk about it some more. So that'll be next week, and until next time, follow your bliss. Keep a clean tank. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Hey YouTube, this is pecktec, and I'm lucky enough to have a store that had a whole section of plants that I started to become aware of. If you have lots and lots of live bearers in a tank and you don't do frequent water